And welcome to another NBA Countdown Stay Home edition. We have a very special guest, Adrian Wojnarowski, our senior NBA insider. Woj, thanks for joining the show today.
Yeah, Maria, a very special guest in a very special setting.
Yes.
With my Entourage poster just behind my head from
16
years ago. My friend Jerry Ferrara, much younger. But good to be with you, Maria.
Yeah, I did notice that you've been playing a lot of Scrabble. I hope that that's been working out with you and the family, but that's one of those games that I've never been good at. So even if someone puts down the game, I don't play it. I step away.
Maria, one game of Scrabble, one dominant game of Scrabble, I should add. It's been talked about in my house for the rest of the week. There's no question about it.
You're like, I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so obviously we are all being safe, and these are times that we can all learn more about our families, and we're trying to make sure that we're doing the right things, and the NBA is trying to do the right thing, and obviously they were one of the first leagues in professional sports to just walk away and suspend the season. But the question that everyone has now, Woj, is when could we return to the NBA? When could we start seeing basketball played again? Have you heard anything about a tentative schedule or the way that things could shake out should the coronavirus start to clear up?
Maria, the league has any number of contingencies they're trying to work with based on how much time, if any, they have to resume the season. And I think it's increasingly unlikely that the league could make up all of its regular season games. But their hope is that they would have at least several regular season games before starting the playoffs. And then you may have a playoffs that are truncated. You may have shorter series perhaps in the first round. And, one thing that the league is spending a lot of time on right now is at least an initial return where potentially you would have all the teams together to finish the regular season at one quarantine site. Las Vegas has been a destination that has been discussed, that built around the idea of literally perhaps using a casino, playing games, and potentially a ballroom with courts. There's lots of different scenarios, almost all of which, Maria, would be built around the idea of a return without fans in the stands, certainly initially, and whether there would be fans even in playoff games or finals. There's not been a sense that may be possible. That's why part of what the league has asked teams to do, not only give us dates for your arena, but give us dates for your practice facility, smaller venues around bigger arenas. Because if you were going to return without fans to play a game in a tighter environment where perhaps you could make it be a little more creative with television angles, with sound, to make it a more appealing product for television. And that's going to be, Maria, too, as much as anything, for the league to be able to get its television revenue from the postseason is important for all the teams. It's important to be able to have those games on television more so than even the gate receipts of that they're going to lose in the arenas if they play without fans.
Sure. You bring up revenue, Woj, and let's talk about the financial strain that obviously having to postpone a season could potentially cause. How are, the commissioner, all of these GMs, these organizations, how are they handling, the loss of some of this revenue?
Yeah, it's a bigger challenge for some organizations than others. I think that there are, several organizations that, the idea of losing an entire season, it's going to be an issue financially for them. And, the league has had some level of confidence that they'll be able to play some part of the season, that play will be able to resume. They're certainly proceeding as though that they believe that they'll get there. Now, whether that's in the end of May, whether that's in June into July, I know this, they haven't set a hard drop dead date for when the season has to end by, but I know, I've been told that the hope is by Labor Day weekend. They prefer not to have to go past that, which takes you obviously into the start of what would be the football season, college and then NFL. But for teams right now, there's going to be decisions made on player salaries based on canceled games. so far just the league office has taken pay cuts on salaries of their top 100 employees, including Adam Silver, the commissioner. It remains to be seen whether other organizations are going to ask for givebacks from their front office, from their coaching staff, from their staff. That hasn't happened yet. But there's no question that this is, and remember, this is a year where not just this financial hit, but there was a financial hit earlier in the year with that fractured relationship with China. So there's no question that financially this is a year that's testing ownership in a way. And then when the league does presumably return to play, they could be doing so in an environment that's going to be very difficult economically for fans, for sponsors, all the other things that support the league financially if this country is on the brink of a recession.
One more question, Woj. Some of the surrounding circumstances, not just games being played or the playoffs, but free agency, the draft, these are all things that are also just right around the corner. And any insight into how the league wants to move forward with those dates that are coming up?
Yeah, the draft set, Maria, for June 25th. And then, of course, free agency starts on the night of June 30th. It's hard to imagine that those dates stay intact unless if by that point there's been made a decision that the league won't resume this year, that play is going to be canceled. Well, then you could have those dates, but that's not the expectation. So I think what you're going to have when you talk to teams and their sense of how this goes is you're still going to have the draft and free agency on the back end of the season. So whenever the season ends, then you can hold your draft, then you can do free agency, because the hard part, especially you can't do free agency while anybody's playing, certainly. You could technically do the draft while there's teams playing, but you wouldn't be able to make trades of players. You'd only be able to trade draft picks. And it's hard to do a draft. Most deals are built around players and sometimes picks and packages for draft picks to move up or down in a draft. So I think there's still an expectation that would be pushed back, but you're not going to have many of your traditional pre-draft entities that give teams a better sense of players and a better understanding of who they might like to select. The NBA draft combine is likely to not happen. You're not going to have players coming into teams' facilities to do workouts or flying around to meet and interview with teams. It may be more like this, Skype interviews with players, and perhaps teams who are at the very top of the draft, who are deciding at 1, 2, 3, 4 among those elite players. Perhaps they could fly a player in on a private plane to work out for them, but that's going to be pretty rare. It's a major expense, and but that might be the only real transit of players anytime before the draft happens, at least over these next few months anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's certainly uncertain times across the league, and we will continue to lean on you for the little bit of certainty that you can provide us. Everyone, make sure you listen to the Woj Pod. I still get a lot of information from you and still some great interviews going on there, the latest being with Doris Burke. Shout out to our colleague who has recovered from the coronavirus. Sure. Woj, get back to whatever it is you were doing before you sat down in front of that laptop there.
All right. Thanks, Maria. Stay safe.
Thanks. Now we welcome in the rest of the Countdown fam roll call. We got Jay Williams, Jalen Rose, and Paul Pierce.
What's happening? What up, Uncle P? Losing my mind in here.
Is that a straight jacket or a vest? We can't really tell right now.
It's went from a vest to a straight jacket now.
Paul, if you don't kill me on rocking turtlenecks all the time, you rock a vest every time we on this show, Paul.
And all I know is y'all gonna have a hard time getting Maria out of Atlanta after this.
She ain't coming back.
Traveling and all that. She ain't gonna want to get on the plane no more.
Nope. Because she looks cute in Atlanta too. No, I'm just kidding.
You were halfway kidding.
Guys. So we just heard from Woj, and some of the things that I took away from it were this idea that the NBA obviously doesn't want to be playing during the time that the NFL could be, so that kind of rolls out September. And also that all the options are on the table, that we could be seeing games played in Vegas, that we could be seeing games played in practice facilities, because the idea is not necessarily to make sure you have ticket sales, it's that you have revenue generated from television rights. So Jalen, what was kind of your reaction to hearing some of those thoughts?
My reaction is that if we can have an NBA completion of the season, we must do it, even if it means going into September. And I know, especially in this country, people over 55 years old feel like football is king. And the ratings once a week on a Sunday, a Monday, a Thursday for 17 weeks. Now they're adding to that. They adding to the playoffs. I get that those numbers are astronomical. When you start talking about popularity of individuals, social media, Forbes lists, dollars and cents, the NFL players are basically playing under a shield. The NBA logo is of a player. And so, yes, we're going to be excited to see Tom Brady against Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes. But we also going to be excited to see LeBron James against Kawhi Leonard and against the Greek Freak. So if that has to happen into September and then you just reset the NBA calendar, I'm all for that too.
I don't think it's going to be a need to reset the calendar. I understand what they're saying, but the world needs basketball and we need it too. But in saying that, I mean, there's all kind of adjustments you can make, even if it plays through September. I've been a part of 2 lockouts, one that started in December, one that started in January, February, and then, the play must go on. And so they'll figure out adjustments depending on how long or late into the year this season goes. So I don't see no problem with it ever, because basketball will always trump football all day.
I know that I've said before about, hey, could you play it on the cruise ship and could something like that happen as another option to being in Vegas? But also, there's so many moving parts in this, guys, and I feel like we're starting to trend in this direction. I know it's our job to ideate different scenarios in which they could play, and I want to see guys play more than ever. But if this thing continues to spread towards the innermost part of our country, right, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and it's hard to put a projection on it, we might all have to be realists here and think that the season just might get canceled in general.
A lot of people feel like the unofficial start of the NBA season is Christmas Day. So if the NBA eventually started mid-November or early December, I think that would be better for the product anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but we got multiple months to figure it out.
And Jay Rose, I would say that say you were able to play the playoffs in June, July, and August, and then you start the season in December, then just do a condensed season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Shorten the season.
Exactly.
Shorten the season. That's all you got to do.
Shorten next season like it was a lockout year. And if you want to keep your regular calendar, you keep it the following year. If you want to reset it, you can reset it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think something that the point that you're all making is whatever it takes to see this season end. You want some finality to what we've been building up to, which has been some great basketball all the way. Something else we talked a little bit about was free agency and the draft. Now, according to Woj, the draft slated June 23rd, that's going to happen. What that looks like to be determined. But could you guys imagine being a rookie or a big-time free agent during this time when there's so much uncertainty, Jalen?
Well, everyone's situation is different. For me, after playing 3 years at Michigan, I really should have left after my sophomore year. I was like, I needed the bread. I was playing in college, but still going home during the summers and staying in the hood. Like now they allow student athletes to basically keep your apartment and or your dorm for basically a 12-month cycle. They didn't always do that. We used to have to move out of the dorm. So I was staying with my mom those off seasons. So if I was in a situation like this, I already got myself in enough trouble then. I would just say that I probably wouldn't be on this esteemed show with you responsible adults if a scenario like this happened and I couldn't go straight to the league and get my check out of college.
I don't know what the stipulations are of the CBA if they're able to change the scale of the draft, because a lot of those numbers are slotted and they're fixed. But like if you were a Brandon Ingram and who's going to be a free agent this year to a degree, right? Like then if you're an owner and you just took such a hit to your bottom line, if you're giving future projections, plus if you don't know what the future of the league is, fans, attendance, merchandise, all these things, if the economy's down, are you still willing to pay a guy like Brant BI like that super max money? Or do you say, hey, I have to make sure that we're still trying to generate revenue and maybe we don't pay him as much? I don't know how it's going to affect everything across the board.
I wonder what the draft is going to look like if we're playing in June. Is there still going to be an NBA draft? And if we're still going through this pandemic, what does the draft look like? It won't be a gathering in an arena anymore. You'll be probably sitting on your couch. That's what I would be most disappointed in if I was a guy coming out projected to be a lottery pick and not be able to walk that stage and shake the commissioner's hand. So moving forward, what does the draft look like if we do have a draft?
You probably have a virtual draft, right?
Yeah.
And we're on Zoom, you do a virtual draft.
It just takes the whole excitement out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I'm sitting at home and I get a call that I'm going to a team. You know, when you got drafted, Jay and Jalen, you couldn't wait to get your suit. You couldn't wait to be in the green room, see your peers. Like, what does it look like now? Where's the excitement in the draft going to be in your house with family and peers and friends? I don't know. What does that look like now?
I think we're going to see it first with the NFL draft. You know, that starts April 23rd. So we're going to see an example of it almost immediately, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jalen.
Boss lady, I got to point something out, though. The difference for the NFL is their season hasn't started. For the NBA, their season hasn't ended. So I don't believe you can hold a draft until you figure out the completion of the season.
That's true.
So right now, we're not talking about the NBA draft moving, but 3, 2, 1, you're going to have Woj on this show saying that the draft got moved. You can't do it before the season ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, one last thing. I want one word to describe how you felt when you found out The Last Dance, the 10-episode docuseries, was coming out April 19th instead of coming out this summer. What was your reaction, Paul?
Man, I can't. I've been waiting so long for this. Oh my God.
Everyone starts clapping.
I had a chance to see the Dennis Rodman 30 for 30. So I got insight on what his life was as a Bull, but to see it from a Jordan standpoint and Pippen standpoint, I'm thirsty for this right now. They need to just throw it out there right now.
You know what I can't wait for, Jay? Like, I remember when we played against him, when he played with the Wizards, and he was still giving people some buckets in his 40s, right? And
yes, he was.
The trash talking that he was he was like a savant at trash talking. He just took game into a way different level. And I look forward for the rest of the world, because I feel like sometimes we forget to how much of an assassin Michael Jordan was. And he didn't care sometimes, even if you were on his own team, like Steve Kerr, all the things that we saw about them having fights and stuff, like the world to get a chance to see that Jordan, because we don't have that as much anymore in an age where guys are kind of like friends and play together and stuff like that. It's a different generation.
No, it's not about basketball, Jay. This is the behind the scenes. I want to know, him going to the casino the night before the game. I want to know the stuff that I already know the basketball part. I want to know the other off the court. That's what I'm anxious to see.
Like, is the Gatorade commercial really the Gatorade commercial? Was it really the Gatorade game, J. Rose?
Yeah, what was in that bottle? What was he? You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Give me I want some juice.
Jalen.
The crazy thing is that documentary is going to basically chronicle him in 1998, and being in the league that year, 4 times in the regular season, 7 times in the playoffs, we actually played against them, including the Eastern Conference Finals. And what I'm looking forward to seeing, and it's sort of what Paul just said, athletes now, I always say, they train 24/7, 365. They staying in shape. They eating good. They got nutrition. They got chefs, all of that. Our era, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, we worked out. There was times we went to the gym, and there was times we got it in. And usually who set the tone is the best player. And as MJ is out at the casino and playing poker and kicking it and smoking cigars and doing all of that and driving Ferraris, we doing it too.
Right.
And he helped usher that bling bling era, because MJ was like, I need to be clean. He had the Jordans. He was marketable. So it's like, okay, we can be fresh now. So we started wearing 2 or 3 bracelets, 2 or 3 watches, all of that, earrings, crazy size, everything. Like MJ set the tone in a whole different way that had nothing to do with basketball.
Right.
Well, Jalen, you're my NBA countdown MJ, so whatever you do, I'm doing it too, okay, from now on. Fellas, that's another NBA Countdown Stay Home edition. I hope you guys continue to stay safe and be with your loved ones, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
And I can't wait to see you brothers on the jump. I can't wait to see Maria back out on the road getting the ultimate scoops.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.